acting, how they're acting would be impressive, whether they were in a studio, whether they were coming back to 5-star hotels. But the fact that they're giving us that and having to hike into places every day, wake up at 4 a.m. almost every day.
We're in the trenches and they have responded so well.
Wow, how did you feel? What was that like, riding a motorbike in the desert on a feature movie scene?
When we were running in Bromo at 5 a.m. and it was probably the coldest day that we've had all trip.
Yeah, no, to try and get feeling back in our extremities.
It's hard to tell an actor to, hey, you're falling off a mountain right now, so like you need to be scared compared to, hey, we're on a mountain and you take one step and you may not be here anymore.
Jeb, you remember like the dust going in all of our eyes and our faces and stuff like that. In the moment, like
One of the only moments where I felt like you actually got angry at me.
What do you have to say? Let's get it.
yeah, the fifth time that Jeb walked by in the Sailor Mire.
The fact that I could call this my first movie and, I was able to do my own stunts is unreal.
I was gonna say that's when you threw yourself just down a mountain with like zero safety gear.
Do you think this project right now would have been possible 10 years ago?
I don't even know if it was possible 5 years ago. Essentially, you're looking at the entire production team right here.
You feel immediately like immersed in where we are.
Doing a low-budget, micro-budget indie film, keep your world small. But we did shatter that rule, right? There's a good chance that we're gonna wrap the entire thing for under $200,000.
Rightio. So right now, we are literally sitting on an active volcano zone in Indonesia, hosting the very first Ring of Fire podcast. So we can speak about the upcoming feature film, The Ring of Fire. Sitting with us is first-time director and brains behind the project, Michael Kerkering, as well as leading cinematographer and former Broncos linebacker, Dee Mount. Mate, we're literally sitting over the mountains right here. The smell of sulfur in the air from the volcanoes is almost unbearable. And we've just finished shooting our climax scene and setting here in Bromo. Michael, what inspired you to create this? Let's go right back to the beginning. Can you share just quickly your journey from the initial concept to bringing it to life in the process right here?
Yeah, no, I'd always wanted to do videos, filmmaking since I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, I made films and movies all the time, whether it was Legos or getting my friends together, putting them in costumes, having fights. I kind of phased out of the artistic style of it. When I got into middle school, I was more of a jock, really into sports, but I always had editing. But it was just my football highlights, my basketball highlights. I made my dad and uncles film all of our sporting events. Kind of went that all the way into high school. And then when I played my last football game, that was devastating, that was over. And I didn't want to lose the editing either. And that's kind of when that was 2013 going into 14. That's when I kind of transitioned into what we call the kid with the GoPro, right? Took the GoPro. I grew up in Oregon, so we always had mountains and lakes and rivers and cliff jumping and amazing landscapes, and just kind of went out there and was doing all of that stuff all the time, making these crappy GoPro edits like everyone was doing back then. And that was around the same year, maybe a year into that, is kind of when the whole, what I would call travel content community popped off. You had Jay Alvarez videos was probably the first, then followed by Sam Colder videos. Yeah, that whole world kind of, and I was I'm in for that. So I sold all my Air Jordans and a bunch of other stupid stuff I had. I think even my first car, and bought all my first camera gear. And I became the epitome of what the old school travel videographer was, right? Your drone, your DSLR, usually 3 or 4 GoPros at the time, right? I started doing all that stuff. I wasn't traveling the world yet. It was more just going around Oregon, making corny videos, right? Going road trips on friends, all that type of thing. And eventually did transition into full-time travel videographer content, traveled to, I don't know, maybe 16 different countries, met my wife, and about 2.5 years ago, I'm making a long story short, but around 2.5 years ago, I really started to fall out of love with a lot of that. That industry changed a lot. It's really all short form content pushing, and I always intended to just occupy the space for a period of time and transition into full-time filmmaking. And it felt like I wasn't filmmaking anymore. It felt like I was chasing Instagram algorithms and making reels, and I had no interest in making a 20-second video. It's just not what I wanted to do. So I really started to transition back into like cinema, and everyone in that world uses the word cinematic, and it's kind of a running joke because like they probably shouldn't be, we probably shouldn't be. I have a lot of videos called cinematic travel video. I don't know how cinematic they truly are, but I was like, I want to be able to use that word and it means something and it be real, right? And I love movies and I've always wanted to be a director. So again, long story short, I wanted to write and direct my first feature film. A low budget thing, a super small thing. And in the midst of that process, I also realized how much I did love travel, and I loved the locations I would shoot in as a travel content creator, even if I didn't like the content I would make. So the whole idea was like, what if we could get into a lot of these same places, you know, because Car and I spent 3 years traveling the world and making content. What if we could get back into those places, but put like a narrative story underneath these beautiful images that we capture? Because one thing about the travel content community, I would argue that you see images from a lot of the top dogs in there that rival anything you'd see in a Hollywood movie. And it's tactile, it's real, like real environment. So the idea was, what if we could get into there and put a true story underneath? And then we'll get into this and the other one, you know, but like that was a 2-year process of setting it up. And, you know, as far as Dee's concerned, I was about 1.5 years into like my planning and plotting, and I, you know, reached out to him, and here we are. So yeah, get back with you.
Yeah, no, incredible. Yeah, no, just now touching on Dee is like, it's an interesting, unique kind of formula. This man is like, Dee is a former NFL linebacker. You're clearly a high performer. I'd like to know how you've utilized this mentality to help drive you forward in the world of cinematography, and then we'll touch on, you know, specifically what drew you to Michael and this crazy project that we're on right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question, Jeb. I think when it comes to football, that's the only thing I knew. You know, football is scheduled, and I'm sure Michael can piggyback off of this. The way a football schedule would work in a year is never any off time. Even when you're off, you're not off. You're always training for the sport, and you're always going to camps and, you know, summer training and spring training, and all just to be better for that upcoming year. But if you watch closely, to every successful team, they always host a training camp to where you go away from life, all your distractions, and spend 1 to 3 months just really dialing into your industry, like your specific job. And I've tried to approach really business in that way, right? So, you know, I've been in business for 6 years, and every single year of my business, except for last year when I had my son full time, I took 2 to 3 months off and travel to a location, and that would become my training camp. And that's where I would use those 2 or 3 months of just shooting and testing and editing and connecting with any of the local creators, just basically trying to get better at my craft, and just really having that a mindset and approach to, you know, this industry. I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to make that sacrifice because it is a financial burden, but it has really, I mean, even this trip has really skyrocketed me creatively and technically to become who I want to become, and that's a DP who wants to film films, yeah, cinema films.
I feel like you're well on your way if you're not already there, man. It's like, yeah. But now I want to go back to one of the elephants in the room as far as I'm concerned. I've been wondering this whole time, like how you've even managed this, Michael. How you and Carmela, your wife, have been able to organize all this stuff. You know, feature film production is like a notoriously complex process, not to mention a notoriously expensive process. I'd like to walk through again how you've managed to actually accumulate the budget, and how you've managed to pull all this together to get the cinematographers in, to get the actors in, to bring us all over here to Indonesia. It's like, how has that even been possible? How has that even been possible? And can you just like walk us through a little bit of your organizational process and also your budgeting, if you can?
Yeah, and I'll make it short and try to relate it more to like Dee in this episode, and then we can go in more depth when it's you, me, and Carmela. But essentially, right, it was like me and her had traveled a bunch, and we're from a big community, and we were by no means great in that community. I was never some guy with 100,000 followers, recognized by everyone else. Was more of a fan of the big guys, but just really enjoyed doing it. But we learned how to travel. When Carmela came into my life, she was able to streamline the organization, right? So I could focus on picking these cool places or making the art and the videos I wanted, and she would help me schedule, plan, coordinate everything, right? Our hotel, where we want to stay, how we're going to transport there, right? I had done that a couple times on my own before I met her, and it was just so much more difficult. I'd be going to places and then spend so much time planning, I could barely do anything. So she basically did that the 3 years we traveled. And don't get me wrong, she's an amazing artist in herself, and she loves photography now, but she comes from a background in architecture, and she's just extremely organized, almost to a fault, right? Like OCD, like this has to be here, this folder here, everything, you've seen it. So essentially we just made that process bigger, because even though this is a feature film, right, we're traveling more like backpackers and content creators would in these locations, right? We're not bringing in trucks. There's no makeup, truck over there. There's no big giant equipment truck over there. We're just essentially traveling almost the exact same way we would when we would go on those content creator trips. Because sometimes when we did that, we'd be with 5 other people, a couple other creators. And we're basically doing that same thing. It's just that technically people have defined roles, right? I'm actually here as a director. She's a producer. He's a DP. And then we have actors that are acting, right? But essentially the experience you've had here doing BTS is pretty much what I used to do, right? You wake up every morning, you pull the camera out, and you just find stuff you like, right? So the only real difference is that we're going to locations with a little bit more of a game plan of certain shots we want because we're telling a story. But the organizational process is actually less like feature film and a lot more like just what we used to do. And that's why it works, right? The part of it that's more of a feature film, and this relates back to Dee, is like in the last 2 years that I haven't been traveling and doing travel content, I've just been on set. I've been working my butt off, trying to gain money for my life, for my wife and our future, but also for this film project, and just working on set as much as possible. Any short film, any narrative project, any nice established like commercial studio environment I could get myself in the last 2 years, I did, just to see how it operated. So I could grab the parts from that style that would work and bring them into this other world that I know, because this entire project is really about bringing 2 worlds together. It's half travel content creation, traveling style, and it's half narrative film production, right? But it feels almost, other than when we say lights, camera, action and we start talking our language on set, it's all travel content, backpacking, hiking, gear, dusty gear, and every now and then we've had a controlled environment, but it's mostly uncontrolled environment. So that was the process of when I first met Dee, that was a little over a year and a half ago, maybe, I can't remember now. And it was just he's a local DP in Tampa where I live. And I had seen his work on Instagram. We connected a couple times. He started inviting me on some shoots. We started talking. And it's funny because with him, I nerd out almost more over football than cinematography because I'm a major college football fan, nerd, right? I can talk movies and college football almost the same, right? And he played college football at a high level in the ACC conference, which my school, Florida State, played against his school. So we talk football all the time. And I'm like, dang, this guy's an NFL player, a college football player, but also an amazing DP. And it's just I'm in awe of his presence. So I was honored to be brought into his circle, meet Brian, Jake, the guys, the rest of his team. We shot a short film together that was organized by some younger guy. That was fun. And I remember coming to him about how to find a DP and kind of being hey man, I got this project. I had told him about the project a couple times, just kind of here or there, because I knew, it was a year out, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I've sat down and I was look man, I would really love for you to help me find a DP to do this. Because in my wildest dreams did I think he would be able to do it for a handful of reasons. I thought he was too talented to work with me. I also thought he'd be too busy, right? This is a guy that charges big bucks, works every day in Tampa on big commercial shoots with Serena Williams and all these big projects. So for me, it was more like a mentor that I was can you help me find a DP? What should my approach be? And he was kind of why didn't you ask me? And I was what? You could do that? And then it kind of went from there yeah, man, I'll come out if you got my travel. I'm out there. And then it just came okay, every day or as often as we could plan. I drove to his house a million times. We sat down, we storyboarded, we talked about lenses, things like that. I was honored when he said oh, you actually know what you're talking about as a director, because I was do I don't know. Like this is my first time really approaching a project like this and coming up with a visual vision and then trying to translate that to a DP so that when we're here on set, like I don't touch the gear. I mean, I have been operating because we've been in pinches, but like I'm used to like every single thing is under my control. I run the mic, I run the camera, I'm on the gimbal, I have the vision in my head, I'm producing, I'm directing, I'm doing everything. And this is the first time in my life on a project that I'm actually in control of, where I have this specific role, I'm directing, and I'm working more with like the talent and doing all this blocking and relying on Brian Dee, and then of course Brian to like translate that vision into a thing, and they handle all the tech stuff. So that's weird, but I couldn't be more happy, and yeah, it just was an amazing process to get here. Very interesting.
It's incredible to see your commitment to this, and just like how many different things you're managing at the same time. You're just on the go always. It's just it is insane to watch from an outside perspective. Thank you for introducing me before. Yeah, I forgot to do that. I am the improv behind the scenes guy. My name is Jebediah P. Cornish. But yeah, and the host of this interview. Yeah. But from one of the things you mentioned before, there is like although you have the equipment, you have the skill set, you have the craftsmen, and and the actors. It's like a large part of this is improvisational. It's crazy to see kind of thing that you can't plan. You can have a basic plan, I see, but you can't account for everything because we're in an unpredictable environment. This is not a studio environment. I wanted to speak to Dee about that along with some other stuff, like some of the considerations as a cinematographer coming into when Michael introduced this project. I know you said that you mentioned to me, like you saw the madness in it, you saw the craziness in it. Yeah. What were some of the major technical and maybe even emotional considerations when Michael brought this project to you?
Yeah. So to answer that question, I think it's important to kind of make your distinctions on the three levels of being a filmmaker, right? You have your videographers, and they're out there trying to capture the best image, whether that's a 2-second clip here or 10 seconds clip here. So, but they only need to do that a couple times, right? Then you have your DPs who are out there, they're given a project and they're to set a mood. Like their shots are still all over the place, but it's a mood that you kind of feel, right? But a cinematographer's job is to capture consistency. So, when Michael, approached me with this project, it's my job to try to keep, whether we're in the mountains, whether we're in the waterfalls, whether we're in Bali or Java, is to keep our frame consistent across the entire project. And I think that is what separates, like small-time cinematographers or DPs into the big major roles. You really never notice a huge shift in the way something looks in the movie. Maybe a scene changes, but the look is always cohesive. So, and my approach to doing that on the technical level is to just, we've been shooting on a Ronin 8K, and we've been shooting on my Red Gemini, and just trying to bridge those two gaps and doing a couple of test images. When I first got here, I went outside, went on a walk, and just took some, couple shots of the videos of just the colors around this town. Like, what do the greens look like? And just try to match that with the red, and then whenever I'm exposing for the red, I just kind of make it in unison with the Ronin 8K. So it's just knowing your tools that you have and the limitations that it has, and just focusing on that and playing towards those weaknesses.
Yeah, and what did you feel about the fact that we weren't in a studio, the fact that we were going to be in an uncontrolled environment, and all of these places that you were unfamiliar with, and how did that?
Yeah, I'm actually, I really dislike studio work. Me and Michael can agree on this. It's it never looks, in my opinion, like realistic, but I think that's because of how many movies we consume and how I'm often like dissecting the images. I'm like, that doesn't look great. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, that knowing how to shoot this. But being on location, you have to take a grittier approach. And me and Michael have come from a football and athletic background. That's the approach that we always want to take. We want to get here. We want to get in the nitty-gritty. The actors are, experiencing the same as what we're experiencing, and that comes out on camera as well. Like, it's hard to tell an actor to, hey, you're falling off a mountain right now, so like you need to be scared compared to, hey, we're on a mountain and you take one step and you may not be here anymore. That's a very different feeling, you know, like you can't really act that or, you know, expect them to act that in a realistic way.
Yeah, and that I guess brings me to, you know, more focusing on the actual environments and the actual travel itinerary. I want to speak to both of you guys, first Michael and then Dee, is like, where has this film process taken us precisely? Like, give me an outline of like a basic outline maybe of the travel itinerary and some memorable moments or challenges that have been faced. Although, you know, we could have it.
Yeah, I'll try to like bring the itinerary into like the goals. Like, so basically we're operating in two places, Bali and Java. And the reason for that kind of jumps back to the film and what we're doing, right? We're going for a specific niche audience because this whole film takes place around the world that I came from, that travel content creator world, right? Which is all about traveling and images and adventure, right? And capturing that pretty image and kind of making that, you take that picture, that Instagram picture, you're on a mountain and sometimes it's a small subject, or, you know, you got Bali, it's the travel couple thing. But everybody knows what those travel feels are like if they've consumed any of that content, whether it's photography or video, right? And what I thought kind of the biggest trope of that world was Indonesia, specifically Bali and then Java, right? Because inside that world, those are the main places, right? Everyone wants to come live, like you're a successful travel videographer or just a nomad in general. If you can go live in Bali or post up in Bali, work, travel, do your thing, have your nice little villa with your floating breakfast, or at least in the photo sense, right? That's what everyone tries to do. So I wanted to make a story, and this was all of our reference images, right? Most of our reference images that I gave to Dee were just all my favorite Instagram photos from the last 7 to 8 years, right? We got photos from 2015. I mean, we're talking the legends, right? Like, heck, Jacob and Sam Colder back from Beautiful Destinations days. Jack Morris, right? Just Kai was like my main reference for Java. Shout out to all those guys that inspired us, right? Like, they kind of set the mood, and hundreds of others that I'm leaving out, thousands of others, right? This community is so large, and I'm so excited to give this community this project because I really hope it touches them, right? But the idea was like, go to Bali, go to Java, and create this fun kind of fictional story around that world. Take those images that we've all seen, and instead of imagining, put the story underneath of them, right? And then I'm a big lens nerd, so I was really telling Dee how I wanted this to feel. I was a huge fan of like Zeiss super speed lenses, which are these old school lenses that a lot of movies used to be shot on. They're very expensive and hard to acquire. So what I did is I built out a bunch of lenses for this film, specifically the Contact Zeiss lens kit, which kind of, they have the same optics as those lenses. We built a couple Canon FD lenses, which are kind of match the old Canon K lenses from back in the day, because I wanted this to have a really good film look. What I didn't want this to have was that digital look, right? We all used to be like the guy with the Sony or the Canon R5 and these photography lenses, and that works great for doing the YouTube thing. But to make this stand out, I wanted the locations to look the same, a lot of the framing to look the same, but the image to feel film-like and feel tactile, and we achieved that through the lenses, and I kind of gave him my artistic approach, and then kind of as he was saying, he translated that into the technical side, right? And how to do all those things with lighting and contrast and all that stuff. So then bringing it back to what you were saying about travel, right? We started off in Bali, 1 month in Bali. Well, first we scouted Java, just the small core crew. That was a journey in its own. This is our second time here. So me, Dee, Brian, Carr, and our two lead actors, Oscar and Sara, we scouted Java, which was so vital because it allowed us to have more of a game plan for when we came back. And then we went to Bali for a month. And the actors all came in Bali we had a home base, and every day we had all these scenes to tackle all throughout Bali, and we went out and did it for a month every day and came back to that same homestay. And Bali was a vibe, it had its own challenges, right? But Java was a totally different animal. One, we're on the run more here. We're constantly going to a place for 3 or 4 days and then moving, right? So hotels are changing. You have these long road trip, these long travel days, and then the accommodations at the places we're going are significantly less, right? I mean, we're in one of the best homestays you can have in this entire area in Broma right now, and I think everyone would agree, it's not the nicest, right? Like, you're lucky to have hot water in the shower. Our towels are more like rags, right? It's very gritty and runny, but again, it's because this town is more for backpackers that are used to that environment as opposed to, you know, people that are coming for luxury hotel living, because if you want to go do that out there, you know, that's the last thing on your mind. So, but that has made a challenge because we do end up finishing shoots at the end of the day, and we need to eat, and we need to have showers, and we need to get rest. And that's been a challenge, but we knew Java would be like that. So that's kind of the contrast between Bali and Java. Not that Bali was easy by any means, but it was a totally different style, right? Like we woke up every day, drivers would pick us up, and or sometimes we could use bikes for the quick locations with smaller groups, and we just would go wherever we need to go. This was more like getting big ass vans, trucking. Like right now we got to Bromo, right? This is the longest stop we had in Java. We've been here for almost 10 days, 7 or 8 days, and our van drivers dropped us off, but then we've been using these little Jeeps to get down into this valley every single day or up to these viewpoints. It's been dusty, it's been great. Like there hasn't been a day here that hasn't been probably as difficult as the most difficult day in Bali has been Bromo every single day. And then we had to do that 7, 8 days in a row. So,
but it was also advantageous for us to go to Java for our first 3 weeks with our actors because, you know, we spent that was in a very intimate like setting. Like we were all close. Like we were for the most part like in the same houses and basically the same rooms. So we were all shell shocked. So when we got to Bali, we were like, okay, this is way better. And then when everybody else arrived, we were like, hey, we're getting ready to transition back into that war zone. So you guys got to have your minds ready, and because it's going to be difficult. And since everyone was speaking that same message, we kind of came over here expecting it to be on like very low. So everything that we've done so far has really kind of, oh, this isn't so bad, or this isn't as bad as I thought it would be, and them having that moment every time, it gives them a different energy and a different approach when we finally get them in front of camera. It's like, hey, they said it was gonna be bad, and this isn't anything, you know. But I really like that we took that approach, you know, other than the latter, you know. If we never came to Java at first, and they arrived here with us, and we all were in the same shell shocked, and they're saying it's hard, and we're like, yeah, we know it's actually hard for us too. It would have been a very different shoot, I think.
Yeah, you've touched on something there, which I'll maybe elaborate a little bit more on later. That we'll elaborate on later. But there's multiple things having to manage right here. It's like you're the cinematographer. You have to care about the visual language. You have to care about what you're presenting on picture right here. But unfortunately, or for better or worse, that's it's not as simple as that here. There's so many different things to manage when it comes to travel and the group dynamics, and you know, like keeping that cohesiveness, like you said. But we'll get to that. But from a cinematic perspective, how rewarding is it, or how opportunistic does it feel to be able to sit behind the camera and actually take the time to capture some of these beautiful scenes, whether it be in Bali or whether it be in this volcanic land of Java right now? Yeah.
It's been honestly really insanely just breathtaking. I mean, I keep trying to think, like, what was my favorite location? What was my favorite scene? What was my favorite shot? And honestly, the bar just keeps getting, you know, raised. Like if it was the cave shot, or if it was the waterfall, or was it the volcanic mountain, or was it just all these different scenes that just keep raising the bar, and just the performances that are being made in those scenes have been breathtaking. I mean, it's been emotional, and it's crazy because, like, me being behind the camera, so the reason why I don't say my actors real name on set is because I need to be in that mindset just as much as they do. So I often refer to Oscar as Nico on set, and that's who I'm talking to, and that's the character I'm falling in love with from behind the camera. So my job is since I'm actually operating, I need to operate through what the audience wants to see, like from Nico and Christian, and you know, our characters. So I'm growing attached to who they're portraying. So when they, you know, if they do die in this movie, I'm feeling that too, you know. So it's been a really cool approach to cinema, for sure. Yeah.
I'll say real quick too, like what's crazy is, like, you have a vision in your head, and you can see, like, how many times have I, like, we say cut, and I kind of look at them and I'm like, holy shit, dude, that was exactly how I imagined it. Because normally your imagination's too wild to ever capture. Like, the kind of the job of all cinematographers is to, like, dream big and then settle, there's nothing wrong with that. That is just normally how it goes, because usually your mind's just too wild, right? Yeah. But there's been so many times that, oh my gosh, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. And all that comes down to the planning from like you said, the logistics of getting us into the places, the logistics, the things that Angel, Joe, Carr are taking care of, and then the image, right? The work that we put in before this, talking about those lenses, right? The Canon FDs flare a specific way, and they were used for specific scenes to create those flares. And you saw when I was shooting the scene in the rice field, it did exactly what we wanted. And I was like, I look at him after, I'm like, what? This is blown away. We transitioned to the cave where we had planned and hoped that light rays would do a specific thing and that contrast and silhouette shots would look a certain way. And again, like, it's been a repeating story. 90% of the time, it's just looking at each other like, are you kidding me? It actually ended up looking like that. And of course, there's maybe a handful of times where, oh, that wasn't flawless. But like our worst moments as far as like looking at an image and not being happy are like, oh, it's not the most beautiful thing in the world. Hardly ever has it been like, dang, I'm worried about that, right?
And honestly, just having the right tools to be able to pull that off too. I mean, me and Michael fought, you know, for months about what camera package we're gonna do and settle on and what lenses and you know, I get a text with them one random weekend. It was like, man, we should really consider shooting this on that new DJI, you know, Ronin 8K camera. And I'm like, the DJI Ronin 4D 8K camera. I'm like, bro, are you crazy? Like that would never work. Like, there's never been a feature that I know of that has blown up, that has shot or decided to shoot on this camera. And he's like, dude, it's just new technology. It hasn't been adapted yet. He's just give it a chance, you know. And for me, it's like, I always like to challenge myself because I'm a big component of you know, what's the saying? Contempt without investigation. And so when I first heard it, of course my first reaction was like, no, I hate it. Like, I don't want. I want to go to my traditional routes of, you know. But the more videos he kept sending me, and the more I started to do the research, and I'm like, bro, if we're gonna make this impossible movie happen, it would have to be with that camera. So we've been running around, you know, town with, you know, the DJI 8K Ronin 4D. And, you know, for backup, you know, I had to bring my trusty Red because that's what I've shot all my projects on. But, you know, we barely had to pull that thing out. You know, it's been working. Well, it's exceeding expectations.
And for me, the approach is like, look, if you go back to the world I came from, what is the travel videographer's go-to tools? He's usually like a Sony FX3 guy or some sort of mirrorless setup on a Ronin RS3 or some sort of gimbal. Right? We all look like this. We're all this guy running around, oh, nature, this, that, and the other. Because the key when you're shooting sunrises, even when you're not making a movie, even when you're just a travel content creator and you get to an epic place and a sunrise doesn't last very long. You got to get your shots as quickly as possible, right? And having that gimbal allows you to like do those things. But this is different. This is cinema. We needed beautiful, spectacular images. We're also telling a narrative story, but we only have a certain amount of time. Yeah, we're here 2 months, but that has flown by. Our set days fly by. So that camera allowed us to be extremely fast because we can always lock off like I can turn that into a shoulder rig in 2 seconds. We can put it anywhere we want, tilt up. Oh, and then also it's the most stable, steady gimbal. Unlike normal just one-man band gimbals, it has a Z-axis. And my vision was, dude, this is gonna allow us to pull off Hollywood level dolly moves, downward moves, parallax moves that you, not even 5 years ago, you would have needed so much money to pull that off, like in a studio, let alone pulling it off in the locations that we pulled it off in. And I was like, this might be the key. Now, I didn't understand some of the technical stuff, right, on the background. That's why I had to check with him. But I was like, look, from a logistical approach, what this would allow us to do and the speed it could give us was kind of why I threw it on him. I knew he was going to push back against it because it's just not a camera that a lot of DPs are using right now, right? They have their trusty camera because it's such a nice camera that it's basically trying to throw itself in the world with the Reds, with the Aries, and if you have full control and all the budget in the world, you might still pick one of those cameras. Right. But specifically what we want to do, and again, it's not about the best camera in the world, it's about the right, because cameras are just tools, right? As a director, I don't even care about a lot of this tech stuff. I'm like, make it look good and give me the best tool for the job. And I kind of saw that camera being maybe the best tool to get us out of pinches, and I think for sure it's delivered on a lot of the things that we needed to do.
And it has its quirks, I mean, which we'll talk about in another episode, but for the most part, I mean, just the codex has been amazing. You know, we're shooting Bali. I mean, I can't think of one video on YouTube or in cinema that has captured Bali in 8K for a whole feature, you know, and that's 8K raw. So we plan to give our editors and our colorists the best files and just to push the scenes however we want it to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just listen to you guys speak with this passion. Michael's intensity, your attention to detail. This thing that you spoke about earlier about like almost manifesting these visions that you'd had beforehand. It's like, I think that is a testament to your passion. I think that you guys are both gunning at these visions like starving hunter-gatherers, you know, just gunning at it, just like forcing yourself towards it, and because of that, it seems like they come to life in almost exactly the way that you envisioned it. As yeah, it really is quite profound to see. But moving on now, I wanted you touched on this earlier, a couple of the major actors here about the core group coming to Java early before all the rest of us came on. I want you, Michael, to speak to me about the cast. I wanted who you selected and why, and then how you actually convinced them to come along with this project. Because from my naive perspective, I thought actors, were prissy kind of, like kind of hesitant characters, and the outside performing in studios. They're not the type of people that are going to come into the dirt here in Java and roll around in dust and sleep in these horrible homestays of no disrespect, Michael. The showers that barely work and the hot water. We're all struggling here. I'm sleeping on floors in cars and trains. It's like it's madness. And somehow you convinced these guys to come along. But again, who did you select and why? And how the fuck did you convince them to come along here?
Well, yeah, that was a long process. If you go back 2 years ago when this was a seed idea that I was developing, right? The original idea was to have a lot of travel content creators, preferably kind of the more successful ones, play all the characters, right? And there was a couple of reasons for that. One was kind of like, it's almost like having star power inside that niche, right? As an indie film, we are kind of targeting a niche here. And I was like, hey, everyone's gonna recognize if I had like Chelsea Kwai out there playing a character, or if somehow like Sam Newton could be this guy, right? And again, this was kind of a pipe dream idea, but I just thought that would be a really good idea back then. And then now the idea was, okay, oh, sorry, let me back up. The other reason for that is, like you said, all the logistical stuff. I knew how crazy it was gonna be traveling around, and I thought the only type of people that could give performances and be in these environments would be those people. Because when I tell those people, hey, you gotta stay in these types of places and you might have to burn 1,200 calories before we even turn the camera on every day, right, hiking into a location. Well, for them, it's like, well, that's what we do. Like, they come from that world, right? Just like what me and Car used to do. That's normal, right? So that was my reasoning, but then I had a lot of conversations with them, and for a handful of reasons, it didn't seem like it would be the right fit. Also, unfortunately, most of them can't act. And after talking to Car and Dee, a year ago, we were realizing we were putting so much effort into, like, this is a real feature film. It's not a fun little project. It's not a little side thing. We want people that are just as passionate about their roles as we are about our roles. And that meant we had to use real actors, which was an intense realization for me. Like, okay, I got to go get real actors. And it was a very long process, right? Now the first person I reached out to actually was Sara, right? And that was just through Instagram. She's this big content creator on Instagram, tons of followers. She kind of had the thing where she basically posts a lot of what you would call TikTok style acting reels, where they're on an iPhone, they're low quality, but they showcase her skills very well. And I'm almost like, this is what all actors should be doing, social media wise. It's great to see she's young, pioneering what I think the next generation of actors will be doing as far as profile work goes. But I reached out to her and somehow she got back to me. Because it's always hard when you me, I'm sub 10K on Instagram. She's this big, celebrity on Instagram and on TikTok. So she reached back out to me. We started talking early. She kind of fell in love with the idea. I was like, hey, I want to try to give you this opportunity to be in a feature film. I think you're very, very talented, and she kind of helped me get in touch with some other people that kind of come from that space, which is cool because I kind of ended up getting the best of both worlds with a handful of these actors, where they are content creators like I wanted. They understand the social media vibe, even though they might not be travel content, but they're also truly talented, incredible actors. And then a lot of it was using websites like Backstage and just putting the thing up. I was very pleasantly surprised how many people wanted to come out to Indonesia for an unpaid film project, right? They saw I want to go to Bali, but that's also why I had to turn a lot of people down, right? I basically spent the first hour of every introduction phone call with people just kind of explaining what we were doing logistically. Before I could get into anything about the movie, before I could get into anything about their character, it was all just about that stuff, right? And I basically tried to talk everyone out of it. And if they still wanted to do it after that, okay, maybe they had a chance. And then I would get into the character, right? I still remember, you know, obviously Nico was the toughest person to cast. He's the most important character in the movie. And I just remember talking to like maybe 15, 20 people that were all kind of maybes, and you're kind of forcing yourself to settle for a vision that's not reality. And then I remember seeing Oscar's picture on, I think it was backstage, and just being like, oh, I love the look of this guy. Watched a couple of his portfolio stuff, was like, okay. He actually had this super funny like skit that he did, like making fun of those like reality dating shows.
Sounds like Oscar.
Yeah, it was, yeah, right? Now it's like, so, and I thought that was hilarious. Me and Car watched it 10 times. I sent it to Dee. We were just laughing. I had my first call with him, and like, honestly, instantly, Oscar felt like a bro, right? I'm a little older now. Like, I'm 30 now. He's 20, but like, he reminds me so much of myself when I was just a little bit younger. Not that we're that much different, like, you know, but like, he reminds me so much of myself. And I feel like with him, it was this instant connection of like, you're one of the bros, you're one of the guys. I can instantly tell like my funny jokes to you, and like there was never like a warm-up period with him. It's crazy. It's awesome, right? And then, oh my gosh, dude, his talent has been so...
He's definitely going to go far.
And he also physically has handled this incredibly. Like, there's literally, I feel like there's no other... Like, God brought him into this for me, because there's no one else on this earth, I think, that could have done this specific project, acted as well as he's acted, while also going through the physical demand, because... He's the one actor that is going through the physical challenges that us as filmmakers, right? We don't have days off as filmmakers. We're every day we're hiking, every day we're struggling. A lot of actors here have had maybe a week plus at a time chilling and not, but he has basically had maybe, he's only had days off when we've had days off, which has basically been once or twice. So,
but he's never complained, and honestly, he's put himself in, you know, we haven't asked him to do this, but he's putting himself in dangerous, stressful situations, and he's nailing it every time. And you know, we have minuscule changes, and we never need to do retakes. He's just on it. We only do retakes because he felt like he wasn't good for that take. And me and him was like, this is perfect. I mean, but he wants to be perfect. He wants to be criticized. And when you get someone that's comes from that, like, that mindset, like you just sit back and just let them take over that role, and that's what he's truly done.
And all the actors have been incredible, right? I have barely had to, you know, like I've given them all the freedom, like, to do the small nuances of their characters, because I knew we wouldn't be in an environment where if I had to stop and do these minuscule corrections to everybody's little thing we would never finish, right? That's one of the cons to shooting in the style we're in, is we can't just do 1,000 takes. We can't sit there and perfect every little detail. So I, over the phone calls and all the prep, was very keen on who they were as an overall character, what their overall arc was, and locking that in stone, and then giving them the freedom to kind of, right, like Oscar made Nico someone who maybe does this thing, or has whatever the little ticks he brought. I'm like, I'm not there to fix those. Like, you take those. And they've all done such a brilliant job with that, which has allowed us to go, because we are dealing with so many technical issues that if we had to correct all these like mediocre performances and stuff not being what we wanted, we would be so far behind. Right. So they have literally bailed us out so much by being able to, like, they know that they truck into the environment, they go lock in really quick, we get our cameras ready, we snap our finger, and bam, and they're in character. And 99% of the, we got to do that again, has been a tech issue of us. We were soft on focus, our framing was a little off, a light fell or wasn't in place. Very, very rarely is it, I need something different from them. And that has been such a blessing. We would not be able to do what we do if it wasn't for them being so down and so, like, about the journey, right? Because the audience is just going to see these people on camera, these performances, and fall in love with these characters. And that's why I'm glad you're here doing the BTS, so that other people can really see what it took on a physical level when the cameras weren't on for them to do that. Because they're acting how they're acting would be impressive, whether they were in a studio, whether they were coming back to 5-star hotels. It would already be impressive. But the fact that they're giving us that, and having to hike into places every day, wake up at 4 a.m. almost every day,
freeze
their butts off, take cold showers, have nasi goreng every day, like limited food options, right? Like it's so incredible. Like I couldn't be more grateful for them.
We're in the trenches, and they have responded so well. You know, I mean, even, you know, Sara doesn't come from the travel background. You know, she has come from a, you know, more, like I want just they take care of her, right? So she's had to make the biggest jump in her character and trying to deal with this, because it's been really stressful for her, but she has really grown, I feel like, in her craft as well, because she's realizing more and more that, hey, I can push myself to this limit, or I can get through this, and this may be comfortable right now, but I'm so much better on the outside now that I have experienced that. And I watch it, you know, we were all here with her and Oscar for the first 3 weeks, and she was the one that was the most shell shocked. Like she was about to turn back and say like I can't do this movie anymore, you know. But now, you know,
which was, by the way, totally understandable,
Yeah,
because
totally understandable.
you come from a certain background, you get thrown in this environment, it's like crazy, right? Yeah. But I remember like sitting her down and just being like, look, Sara, like I promise you, there's nothing we're asking you to do that you're not capable of. Yeah. Is it totally uncomfortable? Is it going to be hard? Yes. But like, I think this is going to be so good for you. And like, honestly, I'm like really the most proud of her than anyone, because of how hard she's pushed and everything she's overcome, like mentally, to be doing this. Especially, you know, these last weeks, like she's just like a different person. Like she's so ready to work and like all about it, always asking what she can do to help me and everything. And she's a co-producer as well. Like I said, she was the first person I made contact with. So she did a lot of stuff before we ever even got here. Months of calls with her. She wrote a song for the movie. She helped me with casting. I probably have spent the most time on the phone with her than anyone else prior to coming here, right? And then, yeah, coming here, it was like a oh shit moment for all of us, not just her, you know, but she's really just said, okay, I'm gonna buckle down and do it, and I've been so proud of her for that.
And even though she hated that first 3 weeks of Java, like when we're in Bali, she looked at me. She was like, "D, I can't wait till we go back."
Yeah.
She was the
she
most.
Couldn't wait to come
she
back.
was the person that was the most excited to come back to Java. She was like, "I had the most fun here. Like I love Java." That's what, you know.
Let me touch on that though. Yeah, it's been these are. You know, these are young, talented kids. A lot of this acting class here, and to see them, like, you know, to see them growing on the spot. They're just like, you know, the pressure makes diamonds kind of a scenario going on here. It's like really watching the evolution along. But there has been evolution, and everything hasn't been straightforward and smooth. You know, and I've watched from the outside, because that's what I'm doing. I'm watching from the outside as the behind the scenes guy. But I've watched different stages of this process, and, you know, not only the different stages of filming and acting, but the different stages of the environment, and seeing kind of you guys come in to. I came in directly when you guys came back from Java, and kind of I witnessed that cohesive, kind of tight crew that you guys had. It was like, yeah, it was really cool. But then we're in Bali, and here's the thing about Bali. Bali is Bali. Bali is that tourist vacation destination. There's a lot of cool things going on at Bali. There's a lot of, you know, you look right, you look left. There's like things going on. There's parties. There's, you know, there's a lot going on. You know, we're kind of started splitting off on our own bikes, going into different directions, meeting up with different friends and crews, and I started to kind of witness that kind of pack that you guys had coming in. Things understandably kind of started splitting up a little bit, and I started noticing maybe some group dynamic struggles within that. You know, it was harder to get the crew together. It was hard to get everyone collected to go to the scene, and I want to speak to how you dealt with that, and perhaps some other issues that you've managed to overcome here in this project. So,
well, I mean, a lot of that is just like I said, different people are doing different things. There was a handful of actors in Bali that, like, yeah, they'd have when they were on set, they'd have these hard days, but then they might have 3 or 4 days off. They had a lot of downtime, where then you contrast that with, you go all the way up to Chain to like me and Car, and there was no such thing as a downtime. There was times where the entire group had a day off. Me and her still in a coffee shop with Angel, planning a bunch of stuff. Me and him have to get together and talk about the next day, right? Like, one crazy day ends and like all you want to do is sleep, but no, you got to dump footage, you got to double check footage, check audio, and then also charge batteries, right? That's been one of the longest process. One out, yeah, and then make sure the next day is actually ready to go, right? Which takes a lot of planning and coordinating. So a lot of the group dynamics were just related to that, right? Like, if you had more free time and you were part of that group, you could go do things, which I was so glad to see people hanging out and having fun on the side, right? And there was just different levels to it, right? I try as much as possible too, like even Brian and Dee, like guys, go do something, go to the gym, go enjoy yourselves, like go run off together, right? Like everybody needs a break from the group sometimes as well. Everybody has a different way they get in their headspace. Some people chill by being with groups and are being more social. That's kind of what I do. Then you've got, you know, like Brian and some of the other guys that like their thing, Oscar, right, is kind of like go distant, Adam especially, right? Like go distance themselves and kind of be in their own head, which I can relate to that also. So I think everybody just settled in and understood their own thing, and like no group's going to be perfect. There's going to be conflict among every group. Like you can't put 14 people together, throw them into a crazy stressful 2-month environment and just expect rainbows and butterflies.
You and Carl started stressing a little bit about the partying there in the end, just because you guys run such a tight schedule. You guys, like you said, you guys are never off the clock really. When the rest of us started going off the clock a little bit, I did witness a little bit of stress there.
Yeah, well, Michael and Carl is in a much different positions than, you know, me or Brian or anybody like that, because for one, like, you know, these are, you know, kind of, you know, they're adults, but they're also like very young kids. So, you know, Michael had to talk to Oscar's parents and, you know, everybody's who's responsible for them. So for him and Carl, they feel like they have to actually look after them on a healthy level. Like if we send them off to do their own thing, and if they take a wrong scooter or a wrong ride, that something can actually happen to them. So they're put it more into this role of protector and you know, guider and make sure that they're okay. So it's a very stressful thing when they see us leave that nest, and then you know, I mean, you know, we've had some things happen, you know. We did. We had some things happen on my end, you know, that could have happened to any actor, but you know, if it had to happen to someone, thank God it happened to, you know, to me. I got in a scooter accident. And
scared us all there for a minute.
I scared a lot of people on set, but you know, thank goodness that happened to me, and you know, I didn't get any like really serious damage. But I mean, Bali's a crazy place. It's a chaotic place. Like it's not a safe place to get around.
And that shoulder from that accident of yours did look pretty messed up. But testament to your character and again that NFL pedigree. You were up with the poker face like nothing happened. We're all stressed and thinking the movie's over. We've lost our cinematographer. Yeah. You're like, I'm alright. A few Panadols, a giant blown up shoulder, and you were back on set. I don't know how, but here we are still. You know, like 4 weeks after that, we're in Java still, and we're operating at this amazingly high level that I'm witnessing. But I want to speak to Michael quick. I haven't had the chance to read the script. Again, I came onto this whole thing completely spontaneously. I had a bit of a dialogue going with Dee and on Messenger on Facebook. We're on the same Facebook group, Full-Time Filmmaker. I saw that Dee was going to be in Bali at the same time.
Shout out Parker Wallbach.
Yeah. Shout out to Parker. Yeah, and we hooked up. And he goes, hey, I had a wedding film set with me. I was over here shooting the wedding, so I had 2 cameras and a bunch of, you know, hey, how about you shoot the behind the scenes for us? And I kind of came on and I've started to witness this whole project here. I haven't had the chance to read the script, but I am starting, you know, through just watching on the outside and starting to listen to the dialogue and listen to Michael's blocking and the whole thing there. I'm starting to get a bit of a picture of what's going on here. One thing that's fascinated me is almost some of the irony in the script of Michael's written right here. Yeah. It's beautiful, the irony of him speaking, like, you know, really capturing that travel content creative vibe, but then also clashing that character along with the tradition of the lands. And here we are in this beautiful Indonesia with the volcanoes, with the culture, and almost like there's a metaphor, from what I understand, written into the story, almost the clash of this modern style travel content creator world and the beautiful nature and the beautiful culture that it's kind of, although capturing, it's kind of like threatens to destroy it as well. And this is written into this beautiful fictional narrative. I want to speak a little bit about that, Michael, but then I want to also speak about the vision when it comes to the editing process and what you have planned to do in the editing room to try and bring these beautiful pictures and this beautiful story and this acting together. And then I'll get Dee to touch on some of his thoughts on that later. But yeah, speak to me about the editing room that you speak, the the beauty of the editing room.
Yeah, and I'll try to, again, for
Give me
this
that
one,
quote.
keep it more from a visual approach thing since Dee's here to elaborate on it. But like, yeah.
Give me that quote at the start here.
I said a while ago that, because I heard this from another director, and I was like, you know what, I might be one of those guys that you put up with the hell of the shoot to get to the joy of the editing room. I've always loved editing, no matter what it was, like more than anything else. Don't get me wrong, I love shooting, I love being on set, especially these being on these locations. But editing is where I feel like you're really making the story or the video, whatever project you're on, come to life. So I'm super excited, especially with what we've been capturing, to get to that process. But yeah, like you said, like this whole movie has like underlying messages, more than one, right? There's an overall kind of religious tone that I'm going for. I would say, without getting too deep into the religious topics, it's more about like human nature and how you define human nature, and that kind of comes from philosophy and worldviews. And this movie is really about a clash of those, because I feel like if you don't, how you define that reality kind of dictates your morality and your decision making. And all of the characters are meant to represent sort of different ways of thinking, and that kind of controls how they go about their actions, right? And we're not really supposed to know exactly, well, who is good, who is bad. They all have very valid reasons for chasing the things that they're chasing, right? And then the other underlying messages that go with that, like you said, come from that travel world of contrasting kind of the modern Westerner who comes into these third world countries and ignorantly portrays them, right? Without giving away what the movie's really about, we're almost intentionally ignorantly portraying certain things of the culture because of the perspective of the main character, but it's because we're trying to like touch on that as a topic, right? And bring that out, because like I'm one of the people that used to do that, right? Like when you come from that world, you just look at Instagram and all you see is a badass location for you to go be cool in, not taking in the fact that like, well, that's a real world, a real country with real people, right? Like how many millions of people live here in Indonesia in this environment, right? And so that's part of the contrast too. So we try to tell a story where a character does come in with that ignorance and then kind of gets to experience the place in reality, but also contrasting like the different Eastern and Western philosophies as it goes to religion and morality, right, that conflict with that too. And not trying to give the audience like a direct answer, because I hate movies that say like, hey, this is exactly how you should think and feel, but just setting up a situation that creates moral ambiguity, right? Like my favorite movies are when I'm walking away from the theater and I'm thinking for days and weeks about that, right? About, dang, who was right there? That was such a dilemma. So then visually, right, we can touch more on that in the episodes with me and Car, but like visually translating that to D and having to have that mood be on screen, that's super important, because you can have characters doing things, but the difference between like a sitcom and a low budget TV show and real beautiful cinema as an art form is poetry, right? And making those feelings come out poetically with images. I always say like, hey, we're not shooting dialogue, we're making poetry with images, right? Like make a painting, tell a story with the image and with the dolly and all that, right? So every scene has a tone, every shot has a feeling. There's a specific reason we're shooting that angle, up, down, high, low, if we're moving or we're not moving, that lens, whether the lens is open, whether it's deep focus, shallow focus, we want a flare, we don't want a flare, we want cloud coverage, we don't want cloud coverage, right? We can't always get what we want weather-wise, but everything has a specific mood and feel, which comes down to planning, lens choice, camera choice, and then technical stuff that he can elaborate on, right? And taking that vision and technically translating it to reality so that when we are editing, those feelings come out through the images, right? So
so just like falling back on just one point that really struck me there, I find there is a beautiful, amazing irony in the story that you're telling with the clash of cultures and the clash of content creator culture and tradition. It really feels like that we're almost literally living that right here in this film that we're producing. Although we've done our best in all senses to be respectful to the people around us and respectful to the cultures, we kind of are. I mean, I'm Australian, but we kind of are an American film crew butting ourselves in here to Indonesia and just kind of like throwing ourselves into these places wherever we can to get the shots that we need. But you know, you could argue that you could argue easily what the movie is going to aim to portray, and what's going to ultimately portray is going to be a positive kind of insight and positive confrontation of these topics. But at times, you know, it has maybe, although the culture has been so great and so welcoming here, at times it almost feels like we have been stepping over restricted fences or stepping over, you know, places that, you know, we're getting eyebrows turned up. And, you know, I think this is the part of that beautiful term that you use, that guerrilla filmmaking. And, you know, and on that note, I want you to touch on what that term means to you, guerrilla filmmaking, or speak to me about guerrilla filmmaking and how it ties into what we're doing right here.
Yeah, well, so for me, guerrilla filmmaking is being able to use your environments within and use your tools within that environment to give you the image that you would like to portray or you're going for. Like really making, just really taking advantage of your surroundings to really bend it as you would want to, bend it to your will, make it work for you. Like for example, like we had a scene where we were shooting a car interior and exterior, but outside it's the worst light that you could probably do. So where could we go and what could we do to soften the light to be able to nail those contrast ratios that we're going for, and what we decided for just that particular incident is we're going to stand on top of the Jeep with a blanket and position the sun within that blanket to create a softbox, and that's just one of the examples, or using mirrors to bounce light and different patterns to get the light that we want and the mood that we want. And those are just some examples. It's just consistently doing that. And knowing your techniques well enough to be able to pull those off is what I would kind of quantify guerrilla filmmaking in.
Waking up at the crack of dawn or before dawn at 2 a.m. in the morning just so we can get to the place before the crowd starts coming in, trudging through the bush or whatever it may be just to get to where we need to go.
Or riding in the back of the Jeep with the stabilized gimbal and making sure you can, direct a car scene, a car chase scene. It's like these little things that Hollywood won't touch because it's dangerous and they have to go through permits. It's like, how can we do this in the safest way that our actors feel safe, but still get
feel
the
kind of
images,
safe,
still get the images that we want to get. It has been key for us.
And speaking of being on time, we need to wrap. Our car is going to kill all of us.
Okay, so. all right. Then quickly, then I'm going to do this right here. What's next for you guys? What's next for you? I think we've already touched a little bit. What's next for you? It's the bloody editing room. But where's your vision? Where are we going from here? What is next for you, Michael? What is next for you, Dee?
Well, probably the most difficult parts of the shoot are over. We have one more location we're going to, which is like the waterfall area down here in Java. It's like pretty famous. A lot of people know about it. Logistically, it's kind of a nightmare. We have some homestay issues we have to work out. Literally, Car and I might be sleeping in a car.
Did you get me a room? Or what?
No.
I'm in the car as well?
Possibly, yeah.
Me too. I'm in the car too. Because
don't even get me started on how we got screwed on with a booking agent and double bookings and all that stuff. But anyway, we have a couple tough scenes there, and that's where everything ties together. So right now it's just about trying to stay focused on that. I'm trying not to let my mind wander to editing and the stuff because we're still at war. We're winning the war. But like there's still, like soldiers not surrendering that we have to keep shooting, like we can't put our heads down yet. So we just got to get there, finish that, and then we're good to go. Yep.
Well, what's next for me is just keep being consistent, keep just trying to bring the mood of the group and everybody at a level so they can keep their spirits high and keep the performances going. But also just realizing like that we have 2 weeks before this is all wrapped. So I really want to take this time to just enjoy these people and because this is probably going to be the last time all of us are ever going to be together in this beautiful environment. So for me, it's like, we got the movie, and we can still be hard, but like, man, let's really enjoy these personalities and let's really give them some great memories and experience to take back home. And it was like, man, overall that was tough for me, but man, I have some of the best memories I've ever had in my life, and that was really pleasant. And Michael, the director, was really pleasant to work with. Or, Dee, the cinematographer, like he was, a maniac, but he was really cool guy to know as well. So like, we had a really good time, and that's what I got.
Okay, one more question. One word question. If you could summarize the Ring of Fire experience in one word, what would it be?
Chaos.
One word would be. Let's see. Testing. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Testing.
And let's wrap it. The first Ring of Fire podcast stuff.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, this is a crazy experience, but we're not done yet. Like Michael said, we're not done yet.
Well, bring us out. Bring us out to the main camera, Jim.
Yeah. Again, from the outside perspective, I'm the behind the scenes guy, so I'm watching this crazy film crew. And just watching this has been a real testing and learning experience for me. It's like I feel like I've been brought to another level, another frequency just through watching this process. It really is a marvel to me, and I really am so excited to see what comes of it all. And stay tuned. Stay tuned. Seriously, this is something that's worth tuning into.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So-
let's give it a wrap, guys.
Yeah.
Boom.
Can't wait for the next episode.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta run.